Barbara and Esther flew back from Stamford, Connecticut, and their flight was late leaving, and so they missed their connection. And Esther said, well, in the spirit of everything is always working out for us, this one's hard to figure out, because I would have thought if things were really working out for us, we would have made that connection. And then she thought, well, I'm still going to hold to the idea that things are always working out for us. And then they began playing with everyone in the airport who would play with them. The red coat is telling them you're on timeout because they were having such a good time. And then they got on a flight flying into San Antonio with a flight attendant who was, without question, the most remarkable and funny, not just funny, hilarious, not just hilarious, fall down and die funny, that they had ever met. The flight wasn't full. They were in the first class cabin. They had most of it to themselves, just a few random strangers who were not having anything to do with Peggy because Peggy was just too silly for most people. But she was not too silly for Barbara and Esther, and she proceeded to entertain them in ways that we cannot even begin to explain to you. Until for the 3-hour flight, Esther and Barbara laughed nonstop until they were hurting. And even people who were having none of Peggy are now laughing because they are egging her on. Esther said, I would have missed 15 flights to rendezvous with this comedian. So now Peggy is telling them everything about every passenger on the airplane, which is completely unprofessional, but really, really funny. And there's a man back there who really needs to have an air marshal come and take him off the plane. But Peggy doesn't like the inconvenience of that. And she's pretty sure that that kind of language doesn't rise to the level of returning to Atlanta. And Esther and Barbara are agreeing with her. And so she's just reporting in on what's going on. Esther offered to go back and sit with the man if it would help, but it turned out it was not necessary. And then Peggy is referring to the old people over there and the old people over there and the old people over there. And Esther said, you might kind of want to stop that because that's going to come back and bite you in the butt one day because we're all moving through time. And then Peggy was having such a good time entertaining all of them that she forgot to give the in-flight announcements. And so Esther said, please bring your tray tables and seats to the upright position. And a man who was not having anything to do with Peggy said to her, you might want to take your seat. And she said, do you see treetops? And he said, yes, I do. And then Peggy realized that not only had she not given any of the announcements, her kitchen was still all open. So she is closing doors. Oh shit, 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 oh shit. And then Barbara and Esther see her fly across the walkway and into her seat just as the plane lands. And Esther said, here's my card, Peggy. Call me when they fire you, and they will fire you. Because there was an airline captain sitting on the front row, pretending to be asleep, but taking all of it in. And Barbara and Esther felt utterly responsible because they had evoked every bit of every bit of every bit of every bit. Peggy said, they keep drug testing me. I don't know why. And Esther said, I think that cucumber and tomato diet you're on is fermenting in your stomach and turning to alcohol or something. It could be something like that. So, would you have wanted to miss something like that? Wouldn't you have been willing to roam around the Atlanta airport for an extra hour so that you could rendezvous with something that you will never forget as long as you live, that will be a source of vortex entry and hanging in there? Esther has entertained herself with that hours on end, not wanting to forget one precious morsel of information that Peggy delivered to them in her innocence, in her certifiable innocence. in her willingness to play with passengers in an environment where you usually don't get that much fun from flight attendants. So we're just saying that if you begin to watch for the manifestations that are occurring, Esther and Barbara know we could not have been in a better place, because you can't have that kind of experience if you're not in a really good place. And there are many who would say, but Abraham, I thought we were creating empires. I thought we were creating movements. I thought we were creating big things. I thought we were creating more important things. And we say, nothing is more important than the manifested reflection of the genius and the power and the clarity and the love of who you are. In other words, manifestation right now, right now, right now, right now, right now. Reflecting back what? Reflecting back your relationship with who you really are and nothing more. So when you get it, that you have control over your relationship with the vortex, then you get it that you have control over everything. The cells of your body, your economic relationship with the economy, your relationship with everyone, your relationship with everyone and everything, every manifestation, large or small. And we want to say there aren't large or small ones. There's just now giving you feedback, now giving you feedback, now giving you feedback. Well, you see, we're asking something pretty significant of all of you. We're asking you to ignore the reality that's had nearly your undivided attention and to hang your star on your emotions just for a little while, because we know when you do it, your reality will flip. That's what faith is. Faith is finding the vibration without the evidence that backs it up. And most people are looking for the evidence out here in reality. We say we love working with terminally ill people because they finally are the only ones that will do the real work. Because as long as there's one more thing you can do, one more thing you can wrestle to the ground, most of you will do it. It isn't until something gets your attention and you accept that it's the vortex work, it's the alignment with who you are, that you begin to feel your full power, you see. So what happens as you're interacting with other people, it's very common that your desires are similar. In fact, you co-create with your mate. You've co-created such magnificent things in your vortex. You're tied together in a very, very powerful way. But when either of you is not in vibrational proximity to the vortex, it doesn't matter where the other one is, because if you're not there, you can't feel it. And so what we're really saying to you is, and it's hard to hear, but we really want you to hear it. You have to be willing to ignore what everybody else is doing and make your relationship with your vortex the most important relationship that you have. Here's what we would do if we were standing in your physical shoes. We would end every day by putting ourselves in bed, say goodnight to everyone with the idea that you're not going to talk any further. And as you're drifting off to sleep, we would go as general as we can into a place of appreciation. Appreciate your pillow. Appreciate the air conditioning in the house. Appreciate the roof over your head. Appreciate just the simplest things that don't challenge you in any way. Just appreciate. And if you can drift off to sleep in appreciation, if you go to sleep in the vortex, you'll wake up in the vortex. It's just the way that it is, because your vibration is where you last left it. So when you waken in the morning, let your first thoughts be, oh, I like that feeling of appreciation. And then if you can do a little bit of basking just to keep it going. In other words, it's so much easier to start with the vortex and let the vortex affect reality than it is to face reality and then try to drag reality into the vortex. Because law of attraction is amplifying wherever you're at. So if you have a relationship with someone who's really verbal, and so are you, and the conversation is going on around you a lot about what is, you make it hard for you to catch a moment where the vortex can take you in. Now, feel this picture. So you've put all of this into your vortex, and this larger part of you stands as the summoner of you. You're being called home to the fullness of who you are constantly. And the reason that you feel every emotion that you feel is because when you're being called home and you're non-resistant, you go, which is the elation. When you are being called home to who you are and you're non-resistant, it feels like passion. It feels like appreciation. It feels like love. It feels like the heavens are opening, as you said. But if you've been talking it up about things that aren't working, and you've been opening the door and you've been noticing that what you're looking for isn't there, and the vortex is calling you, it feels like tension when you don't go. So the more you can relax and let the vortex take you, then not only the better you feel, and then you can begin counting your blessings, so to speak, making lists of positive aspects, but the more manifestations will show up that you can then begin reiterating. It would sound crazy to a normal person to hear Esther crowing about being called with no shoes to the gravel so that she could walk into the closet with no shoes on so that she could discover a problem that she didn't know she had. But to Esther, that was manifestation that indicates that the universe is looking out for me and that I'm in the vicinity, that I'm being called and letting it happen through the path of least resistance. That's what that feeling of worthiness is. The feeling of worthiness is the knowledge that you're good and Source knows it, and you just get this wonderful exposure to life that is building your vortex bigger and better and bigger and better and bigger and better, bigger and better and bigger and better. Jerry and Esther are having such an interesting experience. They've been moving through life. Everything imaginable has come for them. 5 books on the New York Times, a couple of them #1. Everybody wants that. That was something that unfolded. More money than they have any sensible use for. A lifestyle that is rivaled by no one. Beautiful houses all over the place. Driving monster buses around the country. People adoring them. The message moving through them. Everything wonderful. And yet still more room for deepness. Deepness in their relationship, deepness in their understanding of worthiness, deepness in their understanding that all things are possible, deepness in their understanding that it doesn't matter what is, that you have the ability to focus upon what you want and find it, deepness in understanding your true power. In other words, there is no end to what is in your vortex, and the vortex's ability to bring to you greater clarity, greater knowing, greater love, greater confidence, greater security, greater well-being, greater understanding that you are a being with no end to the capacity of your expansion. So, we just want you to know, life isn't fun unless you're doing it on purpose. And when you are doing it on purpose, then it feels to you, and it is exactly this way, that the entire universe is backing you up, wrapping you with a blanket of well-being, always, always there to deliver to you, not just generally what you want, but specifically what you want on every subject. You get to carve it out. You get to look through the catalogs of life. You get to sift and sort and throw into your vortex. And then, friends, you get to vibrationally tune yourself to the frequency of who you are, and you get to experience those two powerful representations of the frequency that you have accomplished. The manifestation and the wonderful feeling of expansion as it is unfolding. We've enjoyed this interaction more than words can convey. It's a very satisfying experience to stand inside your vortex in full awareness and recognition of all that you are, and then to watch you deliberately join that vibration. Way more fun than waiting for you to croak to do it. Although it's good in any case. It has been our desire to convey to you here today the ease that's available to you that you haven't been tapping into. The leverage that's available to you from inside the vortex is extraordinary in compared to the effort that you offer from outside the vortex. You have a cooperative universe. This is the energy that creates worlds. This is the same energy that keeps your planet spinning in its orbit in perfect proximity to other planets. This is the same attention and interest and love that is available to you all day, every day. We know that we have conveyed with great persuasion the existence of the vortex. And we can feel your ownership of it. In other words, we know you get it intellectually. And today has been our favorite day ever of demonstrating how easy it is to get into the vortex, how easy it is to milk the vortex, and how easy it is to slip from it without even noticing that you have done it. In other words, you will never again move in and out of your vortex without being aware that you're moving in and out of your vortex. The question really is, how deliberate are you going to be about the moving into the vortex, and how aware are you going to be as you move out of the vortex? That's really what we want this conversation to have produced within you. The true power lies in the silence between the words.